You're still hooked on the avoidant. No matter how hard you try, you can't seem to let go of them. Even if they brutally discarded you, blindsided you, pulled the rug from under your feet, or maybe slow faded out on you, and you received little to no coherent explanation as to why the relationship had to end. You were shown little to no empathy in the process, given no closure, but you're still hooked on them. And it's likely because you are holding on to the potential of who they showed you that they could be. You're holding on to the shared fantasy phase of the avoidant relationship. Early in the relationship, regardless of whether you're dealing with a dismissive avoidant or a fearful avoidant, but definitely more prominent with dismissive, that period is called the shared fantasy. That's because it's a fantasy, at least in the mind of the avoidant. It isn't a real relationship yet. There's no real emotional intimacy because they're still getting to know you. There's no disagreements, conflict, and it's too early for any kind of expectations. So their fears are not being triggered yet. And they have a lifetime of bottled up emotions that they have suppressed, avoided, all these different kind of things that they've never dealt with. But the dopamine is flowing. They are feeling good. It's the infatuation. So they're letting all these bottled up emotions flow out onto you. And the result is a connection and a chemistry that feels out of this world. They can seem emotionally available. They can seem empathetic. And they can tell you all the things that you want to hear, that they're looking for commitment. They're looking for a life partner. And it feels great. And that shared fantasy phase is so powerful, so addictive, that even as the avoidant pulls away, shuts down, does very unhealthy behavior, distancing, ghosting, cheating, discarding, you're still holding on to that shared fantasy because you want that back more than anything in the world. But the problem is, that is only the potential of who they are. It's not the actuality of who they are. It's not the entirety of who they are. Because the entirety of who they are is also a deeply insecure person that fears being vulnerable, that fears commitment, fears rejection, is unable and unwilling to communicate about deep things and feelings, a person that likes to keep things surface level, a person that struggles with self-reflection, a person that avoids accountability, and a person that lacks empathy for their partner because of their own insecurities. One of the core components of being emotionally available is the ability and the willingness to empathize with your partner, to feel their emotions along with them, to actually care about their wants, needs, feelings, emotions, all of it. And when an avoidant is triggered, they become wholly self-absorbed, completely focused on themselves and what their own perceived wants, needs, feelings, and fears are in that moment. They're not able or willing to consider the needs or feelings of the other person due to those deep insecurities. So, the early version is the version that's not triggered, the version that hasn't actually faced any of the real challenges that a relationship has. And many of their triggers are actually triggered from normal, healthy relationship behaviors. This all stems from childhood emotional neglect. This is a person that received consistent emotional neglect as a child. And the end result is a person that personalized that neglect, grew up to feel unlovable, like they're defective, that something's wrong with them. They learned if you rely on anybody for your emotional needs, you're going to get disappointed, rejected, abandoned. So this is ultimately why emotional intimacy is something that they don't do well with. It's a trigger. It causes their fears. Now, can they heal all this? Yes, they absolutely can, but they have to want it. They have to want it badly enough to do the work, which should include therapy with a licensed psychotherapist. But you can't fix them. And if they are showing you that they are not making any efforts to change, if they're not in therapy, if they're not committing to a change in behavior, if their communication has not changed or improved, if they are still not taking accountability for the way they hurt you, for their emotional unavailability, then what you're going to get is more of the same. You are hoping for that early version to come back, and that version is not going to come back. And if it comes back, it'll come back in limited small doses, only for the avoidant to get triggered again, pull away, and do avoidant behaviors all over again. If they are not showing you that they are actually invested in changing, you are setting yourself up for continuous heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. This is why holding boundaries is so incredibly important. Your boundaries are your limits of what you want, don't want, what you need, don't need, what you'll tolerate, not tolerate, and your expectations. And it's certainly important to put those out there because that will protect you. Your boundaries will protect you from going through this over and over and over again. Yes, your boundaries might cause the avoidant to run away. But ultimately, if they run away because you have needs, feelings, boundaries, expectations, they were never going to meet those expectations. They were never going to show true concern and effort to meet and respect your boundaries. And what kind of relationship are you actually losing if you're losing a person that is unwilling to put effort in to meet your needs, to respect your boundaries, to meet your expectations? You're losing a one-sided relationship where you're doing all the giving and they're doing all the taking. And that kind of relationship is a recipe for anxious attachment. It's a recipe for feeling like your wants and needs don't matter and that you have to earn the love from this person. It just perpetuates anxiousness. You deserve better than that. You deserve somebody who is able to follow through with the promises that they made to you early in the relationship. A person that doesn't pull the switcheroo and become emotionally unavailable after they presented themselves as being emotionally available. You deserve what you give them, which is your actual commitment, your love, your energy, your time, and your investment. You deserve that in return, and don't sell yourself short, no matter how much you care for this person. If this person is not treating you the way you deserve, hold those boundaries, respect yourself, and stand up for your needs in a healthy way.